An offensive rating of 127.1, a defensive rating of 116.6, and a net rating of plus 10.5. In other words, with Nikola Jokic on the floor last season, the Denver Nuggets were one of the best teams of all time. When he went to the bench, however, they weren't quite so good. And this has been a constant theme over the last few years, because despite the Denver Nuggets roster changing in each of those years, one thing has remained constant every single year. When Nikola Jokic goes to the bench, you can almost guarantee that lead is going to disappear, or best case, it's going to be cut in half. Well, this might be the year that finally changes, because after firing Calvin Booth and Michael Malone late in the regular season, the Nuggets finally recognized that this team could be pretty good if they got Nikola Jokic some help. Almost good enough to win an NBA championship, some might say. And after going 7 games against Oklahoma City in last year's playoffs with no depth at all, the NBA should be slightly terrified of what a new-look Denver could look like, and a Denver Nuggets team that might actually have a serviceable backup for the first time, maybe ever. Even though in the most Denver Nuggets way possible, that trade nearly fell through before it even materialized. But as of now, Jonas Valanciunas will be a Denver Nugget, and as of now, he is the best backup center of the Jokic era. Or is Jokic technically the best backup center of the Jokic era when he was backing up Jusuf Nurkic? What a great time that was. But on a serious note, if you've watched the NBA at all over the last 5 to 10 years, you should be pretty familiar with what Jonas Valanciunas brings. He is a physical presence, to say the least. I mean, just look at the man. He is a monster of a man, and he uses that size and that physicality to beat up teams and players on the boards, to beat them up in the post with soft touch despite his physicality and a really well-rounded offensive game as a scorer. He might not be an elite defender, but he is one thing for certain: he's better than Dario Saric just off his size alone. And one part of his game that is underrated is his passing. Just look at him here posting up Iguodala. He has the awareness to avoid the turnover and just a beautiful pounce pass to a cutting Keon Ellis. Or here again in the post, and as he's going to the fadeaway, Derek Jones Jr. helps over, and watch JV adjust midair to make the pass to Sabonis underneath the rim. And this is the advantage of actually being a consistent post scorer. Something Dario Saric wasn't, is it consistently forces the defense to make a decision. Do you want to leave someone in isolation against Jonas Valanciunas and let him bully them all the way to the basket? Or do you want to help and then allow him to make plays as a playmaker, which is something he can do? And David Adelman is even more excited about it than me or you.
Why did you feel like Jonas Valanciunas was the right fit?
You can play through him. Jonas is a guy you can post up against the smaller lineups. Very good dribble handoff player. He's a guy those guards can play through.
And for Denver to not have to attach any assets to trade Saric for a center who averaged over twice as many points a game, who is better defensively, a better rebounder, a much better interior scorer and presence. And look, there was even a point in time where he was taking and making some threes. Now, I wouldn't expect that, but the Nuggets were playing DeAndre Jordan in the 2025 playoffs. DeAndre Jordan. Anything you get from Jonas Valanciunas that is somewhere in 10 to 20 minutes a game, I promise you that will be the most welcome boost to this team, because last year Nikola Jokic was 5th in minutes per game, which already sounds kinda crazy, right? Until you realize the next highest center on that list was 25th, and that was Karl Anthony Towns. Even Tom Thibodeau minutes couldn't compete with the reliance Denver had on Jokic last year. And you know, it had gotten so bad with his on-off numbers and the impact he was having that people were making up theories that Denver were purposely signing bad backup centers and just bad bench players to dramatically inflate Nikola Jokic's on-off numbers so he could win more MVPs. If that sounds like the most crazy conspiracy theory you have ever heard, it's a conspiracy theory that people genuinely believed. That's how bad it had gotten. But it's not just Jonas Valanciunas. There was one clear theme from the Nuggets this offseason. It was to acquire shooting shooting, and more shooting. And if you want any idea as to how excited these shooters are to play with Nikola Jokic,
What are you most excited about playing with Joker?
oh,
Look at that smile.
just look at the smile from both of those guys. They continue to talk more in depth, but the initial reaction says everything. And obviously, Cam Johnson is the biggest piece, and Cam Johnson is probably the biggest wild card on this team. And I say that because we saw what he did last year in Brooklyn on an elevated role, but in a situation where so much was put onto his plate. Now he is still going to have a high role and a high usage. He's going to do it in a way where he is playing with better teammates than he ever has before, in a system that is set up perfectly for him to flourish. And whilst him and MPJ had somewhat comparable numbers, and I've heard people say they're comparable players, the difference with Cam Johnson is, aside from the cerebral part of the game, although that is probably the biggest difference, it is his playmaking. It is his ability to put the ball on the floor, and once the defense closes out at him, he can then make something happen. Cam Johnson is not someone who will just spot up in the corner and knock down threes. He will do that, and he will do it excellently, but in addition to that, he is going to do so much more. And another player who fits that bill is Tim Hardaway Jr. He is someone who they brought in for shooting, but he can do more as well. He can put the ball on the floor and playmake. He can put the ball on the floor and get to those pull-up two-point jumpers. He played and started 77 games for the Detroit Pistons last year, a Pistons team finished 6th in the Eastern Conference. He might be someone that is a little bit streaky, and I'm not expecting him to be the greatest player of all time off the Denver Nuggets bench, but I promise you he's going to add some much needed reliability and a veteran presence that they just didn't have last year. And over the course of the season, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas will be able to eat into minutes that will leave Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, all of these guys fresher for the playoffs, and that is the key detail. You can question how much impact these guys will have in the playoffs, that's fine, but don't question what they're going to do in the regular season, because we have seen it for a decade, both of these guys contributing to winning basketball. Now, someone who has contributed to winning basketball in the regular season and the playoffs is another huge addition. Bruce Brown is back as well. And this is someone who we saw have the best season of his life in Denver. We saw him win a championship, get paid an absolute stack of cash, and now he's back in Denver on a team-friendly contract. And his game is just perfectly suited to play alongside Nikola Jokic. I know I say Nikola Jokic a lot, but Bruce Brown really is the perfect example of someone that is just perfectly fit for Jokic because of his ability to cut, because of his ability to get out in transition, because of his unique skill set. Really, there is no better team in basketball for him to play on than the Denver Nuggets. And everything he did over the last few years, it doesn't matter, because I expect Bruce Brown to get back to what he did in Denver just a couple of seasons ago. And if he does that, forget about Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas. Those are cool signings. Bruce Brown is still in the prime of his career and was just the 6th best player, maybe even the 5th best player on the Denver Nuggets championship team a couple of years ago. This is an incredible signing on a minimum contract. And what is so great about the Nuggets now is all of a sudden you don't have to rely on Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther and Deron Holmes. What I do want to say, that doesn't mean these guys are garbage either. I think these guys are all good NBA players. And I know what some people are going to say, well, no, they suck, blah, blah, blah. No, I think they were just too young, asked to do too much, and simply not ready to be relied upon in the most high leverage moments possible. And as a result, obviously you got some disappointing performances. But over the course of a regular season, and maybe even into the playoffs, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, those guys are absolutely going to impact winning basketball. And another guy who I expect you'll see the best version of, well, because it will be the first time he'll be on an NBA court, is Deron Holmes. And he is someone I'm so excited about that I made an entire video on him specifically. So if you want to check that out, you can. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Have a great day. Bye.